One Night Only director cut out so much nudity because people dislike sex on screen. This is an actual story from Variety. Alan, I know you have the notes.
Yes.
Look closely at this. I'm going to zoom in so we can. Well, that's not working.
No, zoom in on the picture, not the.
That's what I'm trying to do. Anyways, give me the story.
All right. Will Gluck's comments about One Night Only highlight a bigger Hollywood debate. Is Gen Z actually uncomfortable with sex, or are filmmakers misunderstanding what younger audiences want? Gluck says he learned through audience testing that nudity and explicit sexual situations can make younger audiences uncomfortable in theaters. He claims this influenced him to cut so much nudity from One Night Only because audiences would become more distracted and lose focus on the characters. The idea is partly supported by UCLA research. A 2025 Teens and Screen survey found that 48.4% of young viewers said that there's too much sex and sexual content in movies and television, while many preferred stories centered on friendship and relationships that aren't primarily about sex. So the emerging picture is less Gen Z is prudish, but more Gen Z doesn't want gratuitous sex. Younger audiences may be more interested in intimacy, emotional connection, and believable relationships than scenes that simply put naked bodies on the screen. That makes One Night Only particularly ironic. The movie's built around a society obsessed with sex. Yet Gluck says that he had removed much of the actual sex and nudity because audiences found it distracting. The result raises an interesting question for Hollywood. If you're making a movie about sexual repression for a generation supposedly less interested in sex, how much sex do you actually need to show? And there's evidence the answer isn't simply less. Recent commentary around the film has pointed out the contradiction between claims that Gen Z doesn't want sex on screen and the popularity of more sexually explicit contemporary movies and television.
Well, look, you and I both saw One Night Only.
Mm-hmm.
It's a romantic comedy, and I think because that's really the genre, I don't know that you needed nudity at all. It would not. There is the genre of which is a dead genre. Okay, westerns. Yes, they still make westerns. That was a genre that dominated. The westerns were the superhero movies back in the day, and they made a lot of them, and that genre died. The teen sex comedy was a huge genre when I was growing up. Films that had nudity, that were teen sex comedies. Risky Business, Porky's, Zapped,
Revenge of the Nerds.
Like, it was a staple. The teen sex comedy was a genre unto itself. Now, the John Hughes teen movies, those were kind of their own thing. But really, having seen One Night Only, I don't know that for that you needed it for the story. She's already dressed very provocatively.
Very well, yes.
Throughout the whole film, mostly. The whole
in
film,
this dress throughout the whole film.
Yeah, very short skirt showing cleavage. You kind of didn't need it. It was already there in front of you. So I feel like that was a wise choice. And believe me, I'm no prude. I'm not against nudity at all in films, but there is a right and maybe a wrong way to use it. So what are your thoughts on this, Alan?
Yeah, it's funny. So in the 80s, when I was a fairly devout evangelical Christian, there was the same issue. And for the movies you just mentioned, Revenge of the Nerds, Porky's, the teenage sex comedy, and we were having the exact same conversation about that. Because there is a difference between sex and romance. And I think what Gen Z and what I think most people want generation after generation is they want their movies to have romance. They don't necessarily want their movies just to be about people having sex. I think the issue here is that we're approaching the subject at the wrong level. I think what's happening today, that wasn't happening back in the 80s was this idea of marriage, family relationships, and the things that it takes to build a strong one, and the benefits of it, which is that romance, which ultimately leads to the sex part. And I think Gen Z, the thing that I get from them is we have so deconstructed the family and what relationships are that they're confused, and that's why this idea of romance is just out of their mind. And one of the things I appreciate about this movie is, when it's all said and done, it's the romance that works. And
it ends up being, even though the plot centers around sex, the movie really does have kind of a sweet center, so to speak.
It is ultimately about these two characters getting together, and they spend an entire year not having sex, and you realize what kind of relationship they built from that, to where they're finally able to have that moment at the end.
And it's not the moment you think.
Yeah, it's not.
When you're saying that moment, it's not what you think.
No, I'm talking about the actual moment in the movie.
Don't say it.
Yeah. But we talked about the message of the movie, especially at the end of the movie, is exactly what Gen Z needs to hear. But I think the issue here is, we're talking about this movie that probably didn't need all the sex, but at the same time, I feel like intimacy coordinators are the problem that got into this. That they just got on set and say, do we really need all this nudity? Do we? And I feel like they're the ones who ruined the movie ultimately.